very happy to be here, by the way.
You're welcome. Happy are you too.
I'm just so excited about this. I first think we should just start by talking about your studio a little bit. You know, how it came to be, and yeah.
Well, the artist Steve Adams and I had studios in the Montrose area, and we were together as a couple, and we decided in the 1980s, early 80s, 82, he had just graduated from Rice, and so did I, at different fields.
Yeah.
And so we decided to build a house studio for us to work.
Yes.
And the only land that we could afford, because we had very, very little money, was here.
Yeah.
And this was all just woods, absolutely
Amazing.
woods.
Yeah.
And so we came here and built the house that took us, we never finished it in those years, but it took us for 2 years with a lot of work, just the two of us.
Yes.
Designed it and built it. The studio with light from over there that lights up the wall where I do my work.
Yes.
And already in my studio in the Montrose area, I was using the space of the studio very much as a sort of an arena for the human and the natural environment.
Okay.
And when I came here, I mean, I had a studio that was twice as big as the other one.
Yeah.
And I copied what I had in the studio in Houston, that were the French doors that have become very much to me almost, I discovered after having several works that I was using them almost to express the excitement of discovery.
Yes, yes.
The opening of the French doors. So
that's so true.
I had the French doors to the woods and 2 large windows to the woods again, so I have a panoramic view.
Amazing views.
And the view over there. So.
Just wonderful.
And then, but strangely enough, I didn't use my studio that much as with that same purpose. For quite a while, I went into doing different kinds of art, but I returned to that, particularly in the last 10 years or so, and pretty much making variations of the human environment and vis-a-vis the natural environment, and to make it a stand-in for the human condition in nature.
Yes, yes. It is amazing how you have pulled in your actual studio into so many of your paintings, and I know we'll talk about that shortly, because it just fascinates me. But I was thinking, you know, one thing I wanted to bring up is like the first time I think I saw your work, because it was one of those, I guess you call them, it was a round look at the world, and you were, I think it was you sitting in the center without a head. And I probably saw it at Becky's home at some point, Becky Victoria, his sister. And I was so impressed, because not only was it evident that you mastered painting, but just it made me engage into some other world of thought.
Thank you. That was part of the intention. Yes,
well,
exactly.
good. It worked. Yeah.
Well, if I can say something about
yes, please.
What happened is that in the 1970s, in Houston, in the Montrose area, having finished my studies of philosophy and doing art all the time, I decided to re-engage fully into doing art, but I was rather disappointed with some of the modes of doing modern art, and I wanted to dwell on something that had intrigued me. That a professor of mine once said, that perhaps the investigation of the nature of the visual world is not finished, as modernism thought.
Yeah.
And I decided to look at it, and it became obvious that it really isn't, because of the constructions of the Renaissance create paradoxes and constructions that are incorrect. But to me, what it became obvious was that, unlike our vision that instantaneously that we just see something like a window in front of us, the real human experience of the visual world is not like that. It is that we're surrounded. We can turn our vision all around, and we're aware that the visual world surrounds us as if we were in a sphere. So I work very hard, I mean, to try to figure out what would be the perspective system of the whole sphere. And it turns out to be a six-point six vanishing point structure, which is rather complicated. A bit of my disappointment came when I found out that another artist, Dick Termes, was doing that, really figured that out, and he was painting on spheres. I wasn't attracted to that at all, because just like you cannot see the whole visual world naturally, because our eyes only provide a portion of it. You cannot see the whole sphere either.
No, no.
Or you would have to paint it inside of a circular room, but that doesn't work either.
It doesn't work.
So I thought, how could I have it and bring the experience of the totality, but immediately? And I thought of a mathematical process that I can explain more clearly just in a graphical way. If the whole visual world is like a balloon, like an elastic balloon, an image, right? Like that, I thought of making it a little hole with a pin and just stretching it and flattening it. So that's what all all those paintings are. It's the whole visual field that can be flattened here, it can be flattened that way, can be flattened this way. And so you can see everything, and the distortions, because it gets distorted the moment that you are, the point becomes the whole perimeter of the image.
Oh my goodness,
right? Those distortions are really the translation of the curvature of the image, because the whole image and that curvature into the flat thing. So it's mathematically quite correct in that sense. And for instance, this is an image that it's in my studio, and you can see in front, to the right, to the left. You can see up there to the windows.
You really,
You can see the whole floor up to here, which is the wall that it's behind here. This is the wall, and all this could wrap up into.
So it's like your vantage point.
Right, exactly.
And then you in the actual.
Well, that is then what happened that it was strange and unusual, I would say, is that having studied philosophy, I've had the destiny or the choice, I don't know, to traverse a field, a terrain that it was no one's land, meaning all the disciplines, I mean, that were created during the modern times. It started with the Greeks. There was the science, the physics, the chemistry, biology, there was mathematics, there was the art, visual art, etc. All these different fields, and each discipline has very much its limits, its methodologies, etc. But exciting things that happened when people were looking beyond the borders and the space between. And I have been traversing this space between philosophy and the visual arts. And to my surprise, I mean, I came across something that I was absolutely unexpected, and I was just I didn't understand it at first. You saw that painting with me without a head. What happened is that I had flattened the whole thing, and I could say, oh, I can represent absolutely everything, right? I could represent here. But when I came here, I couldn't represent it because there was a blind spot. So to be accurate, there had to be a vacuum, a void there. And if you put this next to that, well, you don't see that. There's something there you don't see. And then with more understanding of what was going on, and the fact that I ponder on it, and the fact that even a perfect visual observer, I mean a theoretical perfect visual observer, still could not suture that. So I said, well, wow, that is philosophically very interesting, because it coincides with the space, to say, the space of subjectivity. Because we never see ourselves as an object in the world, we're always a subject.
Oh my gosh, that's good.
So I said, well, this is fantastic. And the only problem that it is really very much a philosophical sort of insight, that the philosophers are not very inclined to read images or to read philosophy in images, and the artists are not that interested in reading philosophy. So in any event, to me it was very interesting, and I have the really very very interesting life of discovering things of that sort.
Well, I think also you made it more accessible to people like me to understand that thought process, because reading philosophy, at least classical philosophy, when I did, I certainly wasn't mature enough to grasp a lot of what I was reading, but I'm not even sure I would be now. But this, when you translate a philosophy into visual, wow, that really at least reaches me, and I think a lot of other people probably.
And I was, I mean, some artists have been doing this, dealing with the issues of the subjectivity and philosophical issues. What's the mind, and how does the mind relate to the visual world, etc. And one of those people was Velázquez with Las Meninas.
Okay.
I mean, all his works, I mean, his important grand works are very, very conceptually political, humanistic, and moral lessons, all sorts of things.
True, that's true.
But in Las Meninas, he was asking precisely that question: why is it that I can see everybody else, I mean, with their heads, but I cannot see myself? Right?
That's true.
And you can see the whole Las Meninas is really the reflection in a mirror, right? Because he's looking at himself, so it has to be on a mirror. Although they were not mirrors that big at the time, but perhaps he used several mirrors of some construction. And so he raises the question, I mean, who am I? And he puts the king, the queen, and himself, and everybody in the same position that you were talking, the observer, right?
That's great.
So I think that painting is just, it's a masterpiece, I mean, the things going on, and yet it looks like it's such a ordinary, domestic scene in which the Infanta comes in with the two Meninas.
It makes me want to go back and look at it now, because even though I have seen it, I have to.
And I consider that, and I'm not the only one, I mean, the greatest painting ever done.
Wow.
And so I decided, from 40 years ago, I wanted to do an homage to Las Meninas.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't want just to repaint Las Meninas in my style, which has been done a lot. So finally, last year, I decided, I think I have something to say over and above in the same direction, but over and above the path that Velázquez is asking. And this is it, right? It's a disappearing mirror, in which, I mean, against a domestic scene, my dogs, my niece, and Terry, my partner, my friend Bruce. And then there's a disappearing mirror, just like in Las Meninas. And the mirror is pretty much here. You can see this here. Because I can see myself reflected in the mirror. I mean, this is Lacan.
I like the look on your face, too.
And this is the easel that is reflected. I am reflected. And this is myself, right? In which the easel that I see directly and reflected in the mirror, and this is myself, I mean, looking at me directly, but of course I mean, I cannot see the very center of my subjectivity, not even if I've had the most perfect eyes conceivable. Right?
That's true, we just can't.
And so I'm painting there,
Oh, I'm just hearing you explain it, and it's funny because I know I've talked with Becky about some of your works, and she's very good at explaining things. But the head missing, it still didn't quite sink in for me until you just now said it. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. I think, you know, and you know, because I want to get to your more recent work here too, but I wanted to just touch on something that I was very impressed with, and because you've done some still lifes, but you know, I know that first I was just attracted to the beauty of them, and these were like, I think it was like a wood pile, sticks, wood, and then those root balls or something, and after I watched them for a while, or looked at them, I started to get the feeling that I was looking at bones, especially the roots, you know.
Right. So bones too.
I knew you were going for something deeper than just the beauty of how you painted them. So talk about those a little bit.
Well, for instance, though, that wood pile and those things, I mean, I loved, there was from the plastical point of view, two things. One, they were very simply done with just two colors, two complementary colors. The whole thing is done with violet and yellow.
Oh my gosh,
And so,
that's amazing.
Which is one of the exercises that my professor, when I was a teenager, I mean, said you can get everything with just the two complementary colors. You get everything. So I was working that way, just those two colors, and I would get all these things. So it is all the deliciousness of navigating all those shades of grays and to the saturated colors of the two extremes. So that's one. The other thing is that, well, there were two more things with those nature works. One is the fact that they were done, at least the ones that the wood pile and others belong to. It is my intense preoccupation with nature vis-a-vis the activity of human beings that are so detrimental to the nature, to the very nature that is providing us a home, and to the well-being of other animals.
Totally.
Right? And that's why I mean one of my last paintings is called The Sixth Extinction, making honor to the...
that just gives me the chills.
To the great book that was published.
I had read that book, yes.
So I think that apart from all these conceptual issues, I'm very interested in the issue of our responsibility to nature.
Oh, I love that. And I kind of think because you painted them in the dead state.
Right.
And I mean that.
And
really...
notice that, for instance, in that wood pile, as in the whole series, just about there is the moon, but it's always Venus is there.
I wondered. I was looking at that for a while.
Venus, and it's painted very warm there because it's the planet with the most runaway greenhouse effect. Right?
Okay.
That's where I mean the whole thing is about. I mean, after all, the wood pile is the activity of human beings that have come, cut it out and piled it like that, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then all the other things were the same thing about the activity. I mean, in fact, that's the way I use my studio too. I mean, when I came here, I mean, I was only. That's not quite correct, but marginally aware about the impact of human beings and the problem with the environment. But I became so painfully aware that when I came here, I cut so many trees, and I had to, you can see where the activity of the human being has come to clear the land, and then the forest continues. And it's a feeling of guilt.
I understand that. I have trouble taking out a little sapling, for heaven's sakes. So I get it.
And we're in such a predicament. Right?
Yeah, that's true. I love that you're connected to nature that way, and it only helps to when you put it into your work, I think.
Then let me tell you the third thing connected to that. It has exactly on the issue that you're bringing up now. One of my explicit intentions when I was being interested in the pursuing realism, once I knew, and other things, is my disagreement with a certain philosophy, of the contemporary philosophy, and with some, at least, strong trends in modernism, who had thrown away the idea of beauty altogether.
Oh yes, yes.
And that occurred, I mean, quite understandable, because beauty had been appropriated, and then what was passing for beauty at the time in which the modernists reacted was this kitsch style, I mean, that was at the service of the royals, etc., etc. But unfortunately with that, I mean, we threw the baby with the bathwater.
Boy, that is so well said,
and the thing is that there's a very important, I mean, important in the sense that it's part of the beings that we are, the experience of beauty that is talked about, I mean, from way back in Neoplatonism and in other, even Christianity at one point, of the experience of beauty, that it was a certain connection with something perhaps grander than we are.
Oh, I love that.
And that I've always wanted to do. So in doing the chopping, painting the chopped up pieces of wood, of the tree trunks, it is the horror of doing this, but
Yeah.
at the same time bringing the beauty of even there.
Even
the
that,
beauty
yes, that's
it
true.
is still beauty.
It
I mean,
is.
this idea that beauty is you want to paint it, to reject it, the beauty that as ugly, the uglier the better, and the beauty is totally relative. No, it isn't totally
it
relative.
is not. No.
There is something wrong with a human being who doesn't see a flower as being beautiful. There's
Yes.
something that is amiss with the human being who doesn't recognize, the aurora borealis or the sunset as something beautiful,
Totally.
and to go into other things.
I think it's so true. I mean, there is a real lack of connection with nature. Maybe not on purpose,
No.
but just by the nature of the way people are growing up now in cities and with all their electronic equipment,
Right.
and, and they just don't have a connection, and that worries me too.
It is a
because-
distancing.
It's a
from
distancing,
those
yes,
things, and
that's it.
It's not good.
No, not good.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this because I know that I don't pretend to be able to intellectualize about philosophy at all, but I love that you had said something I read in a nice interview, probably Virginia Anderson, I think. It was a great interview, by the way.
Oh yeah, she's good.
Wow, that was good. The mirrors that you put into things, well, first, paintings that you've done, and I actually see one here in front of us where you only make some subtle changes between the two. It's like we're looking at the same thing, but something's changed. And I was thinking, you talked about space in time, and that moment-to-moment subtle difference that many of us may not have noticed even at first. But then you put the mirror in there. So talk about what...
Okay. When I was working with realism and I had the whole sphere of vision, and I was reading quite a bit about mathematics as well, and physics, etc.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of
Amazing. Yeah.
I was very interested not only then in the space, in the space, the visual space, that surrounds it, but with time. The time enters there.
Yeah.
And I developed this system of representing the whole three dimensions of the space, the visual image, and time by conceiving this moment, this sphere of vision connected to another, sharing one point in common, and then having different times. And just as I flattened one, I could flatten 2 or 3 or 4 or infinite ones, and I would have this sort of ring and perfectly coherent time and space images. But to go to the mirrors that you wanted to go.
Yeah.
So I was already interested in space, and represented, in fact, here it appears there. There's a point at which the whole reality appears one more time at a different time, right?
Yeah.
But my preoccupation with time came when it became very clear that there are two completely different senses of time that can be incredibly confusing if we don't keep them apart. The time as it is understood in physics, right?
Yes.
It is a time that doesn't have a now. There's no now.
Yeah.
It's just before and after, and there's no now. I mean, the Einsteinian world is like it's all at the same time. It's only before and after, but it's solid. There's no change. There's no movement.
Yeah.
These photographs of rooms that of the Shakers, in which are extraordinarily beautiful and simple.
Yes.
And they suspend their chairs on the walls. I have another work with the chairs.
Yeah.
And those walls there that the chairs are suspended. So that even the idea of suspending, right? That you suspend, that it's as if you enter a different space, that it is just suspended there for contemplation.
Yeah.
So I built this. This is only part of the work. There's a triptych, really. There's another one there.
That's what I said. I remember that.
And what I wanted is first to create a space that to the viewer, whether the viewer is walking in front or afar, just what you said. There's hardly any difference in there, right?
Yeah.
And so my interest was in doing this. I mean, number of these triptychs, and that include mirrors and include all of them ropes.
Yeah, the ropes, yes.
That became very much a symbol to me for something else, but then at this point it became very much a symbol of time. Of the time passing.
Okay.
And with two big knots sometimes at the ends, as if time would be holding the certain reality together. But the triptychs that you have, the depiction of those shaker rooms, almost identical. And in fact, I didn't try to make the differences. I knew that nobody, not even
it's
perhaps
naturally,
Allah,
okay. So that makes me feel better.
The fact that they are not perfect is quite good, because the little differences that perhaps you want to pick up.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the idea is that to realize that what is the only thing that is distinguishing one from the other as you look at them is time.
Yeah.
It's not, and when you pass and you see yourself there, right? Again, you realize, oh, it's the same space, but it's me at another time. And even if you don't entertain the propositions in your head, if you take the time, I mean, to just sit for a moment, it is so simple that can bring you into that sort of suspended animation, like the chairs that are suspended there.
Brilliant.
Right? So I wanted that, but it requires something for the participation of the viewer. Right?
Yeah, it does, and as a matter of fact, I think you took it further with a sort of installation, a 3D sort of thing to walk into.
Right, yeah, that one is, there are
so
two
that's
ones.
Part of that.
That's one.
Gosh, that's beautiful.
And they're very large, and there was a philosopher, Martin Heidegger, an important philosopher, who had made a remark about how almost all primitive societies articulate all reality into 4 categories, everything and the categories of the immortals, the mortals, the earth, and the sky.
Ooh,
and so I had these 4 large panels, and each of them with this very complicated to build array of 3 mirrors in which the viewer that would be at the center of the installation would see one panel, but at the same time could see herself or himself in the middle mirror, and the other panels reflected at the same time as part of this.
Yes.
And again, it takes, invites or requires for the work to really live and to exist, the participation of the observer, and that was my
and I know I heard you talking about how it's difficult to photograph that because there's 3 mirrors and they're angled in the center. So but to photograph that
and this is it. I just rework. I mean, one of the panels.
I love that.
I want to. I wanted to improve the work. I wasn't pleased with the way it was.
Is that something you do? Do you revisit old pieces?
Very
often?
seldom.
I was going to say.
Very seldom. No, I don't. I mean, but this one is. I had committed myself to an exhibition, and I was. It was such an enormous amount of work, the construction of those panels, that I was running late, and it turned out to be a bit too simple. And I decided it needs to be much more complex, and and I might rework the sky as well, and then show it again.
It's almost like you walked into one of your paintings. So when you're talking about time, or with your more recent series that you had at Vermilion just last month, I was really amazed how you would often show a person in the present, and then in the background somewhere their older or their past self.
The original intention was well, what happens. I mean, I was in Philadelphia a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, and I said, why did I drop? I mean, all this perspective system of the flattening of the whole sphere that I was working when I was in the Montrose area. Why did I drop it? I mean, it has something very interesting, and I decided to retake it.
Yeah.
And what I decided to do is, since I this polar images.
Yes, yes.
In the past. So I did one or two that are rather mathematically correct constructions, and the other was much more loosely. Their images. So most of them are people that represent the individual in another time, in the earlier time, and the contemporaneous.
Yeah.
And then a couple of people came, and I didn't have the older images.
Oh, that's where the chair's empty in the background?
Oh no,
that's something else.
Very good.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because actually in that chair, that's one in which in the drawing, in the study, I tried to include the earlier thing, but plastically it didn't fit. I mean, it has to be a painting that works.
Yes, right, okay.
It didn't fit, so I decided to do something else.
Oh,
but with another friend, which was a more recent friend, so I didn't have that, I said, well, I'm going to do two. One is half an hour before the other, so it'll be very small.
That's good, yeah.
So I did that in 2 moments that she was there.
That's really
good. In the chair where I asked everybody to sit.
Yes, that's true. That's great too, to see that same chair sort of periodically through.
And it's not this one that I used with Becky, but a long time ago. That's upstairs.
Yeah.
I just recovered. Just came back from San Francisco.
Oh my gosh.
I recovered it. Yeah.
I know. I love that piece. Well, a number of them. One Becky has hanging in her home of her daughter and herself that you painted. That is just marvelous.
Yes. Oh, I see.
Oh my gosh, it's
Oh,
marvelous.
thank you. Yes.
And then, of course, the one you did more recently titled Winter.
Winter, yes. Yeah, no, that was Winter because I had made a painting of Becky. I mean, the first really well thought of painting on bringing beauty, etc., etc.
Yes.
And in the 1982 or 83.
Gorgeous.
And that is the spring. I mean, I asked her to model for us Flora.
Yes, Flora.
And following tipping the hat to Botticelli's painting, quite explicitly. And of course it was in spring, but what time has passed for all of us.
Yeah, oh I love that. I love seeing those. What a strong show. And you know, I had never seen an arrangement of, or at least I don't remember seeing an arrangement of your drawings. And you know, they're very strong. I mean, I just really appreciated seeing.
Yeah, I love to draw, and I have to say it's very difficult now. I mean, because my drawings are huge.
Yeah.
And take 3 times longer than do it.
I was going to ask you, do you normally do a drawing before you paint?
No, not for this series, yes.
Oh, you did, okay.
For this series, and that's one, and for each one there's a drawing about the same dimensions.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I had to solve the problems there, and then when I come to paint, it's just, it goes very fast.
Yeah, it'd be quite a challenge solving those problems, but you do it very well.
I have to raise, because in the whole thing, I mean, the figures look so normal.
They do.
They're very elongated.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
But that's what I wanted to do. Because if there was one painting in which the figure is very distorted. It was quite correct mathematically in a way, but it loses the humanity. Right? And I didn't want that. I wanted to have this very curved space that we in fact inhabit.
Yes, yeah.
But we don't see each other like that.
No, we don't.
And I wanted to create a balance between it belongs there, but it looks so normal, but look, it's very distorted. And if you see a person in your periphery, it is distorted.
It is,
well.
yeah. No, I see your point.
Yeah.
A little bit of help.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
It's just being able to see things in a different way is so helpful.
You cannot do that being stoned.
No, I wouldn't think so. No.
Not at all. Yeah, in fact, I find it extraordinarily, singularly not helpful.
Yeah.
To smoke, I mean, marijuana when one is trying to do all. You think it's, this is fantastic, right? Wow, man, we're heavy. And next morning you look and say, what did I do?
I have a friend that keeps telling me I should drink wine before I sit down to paint. And I'm like, what does that mean? But maybe it would help, who knows? Yeah. Yeah, those are wonderful.
Yeah, well, drugs can be quite helpful, I mean, to listen to music. I was looking at that from there.
No, it makes me think sometimes, do you ever, I mean, I'm sure some people have told you that in some ways your work is a bit like surrealism.
Yes.
Do you ever wonder about that, the surrealist, I mean, in terms of...
Yeah, and I was very attracted at one time into going there, but not quite, but that I touch on it is not...
Looking back at some of your older work even, I saw some similarities.
Right, and not only that, I mean, I've done works about the unconscious, explicit unconscious, duality, etc., which I let myself put contents of the unconscious.
Yes.
Then only later I realized, wow, that's what I did. Yeah.
I know. I just find that fascinating. But you really allowed yourself to look at it differently in a way that I find pretty amazing, actually. And I guess that's because of the philosophical mind that you tend to...
That some people are attracted to and other people are repelled by, but anyway, it's an interesting trip.
Yeah.
Pun not intended.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about those pieces you did. They were stunning. Like, one was, I think it was like a large ship, or it looked like a large ancient boat. And then there was like a backbone or something, and the ropes.
Right.
Yeah. That series was striking.
The 90s, I think. And it's when I began using the rope, inspired in part also by some philosophical ideas, that to me was absolutely astonishing, the fact that the view that philosophy and science and mathematics and history is giving us of who we were in the world was so new and so absolutely awe-inspiring, because I mean the science of Newton and everything, they were thinking, oh well, everything can be reduced to what? To subatomic particles, to atoms, etc. Everything is just a bunch of atoms. I mean that's the idea that reductionism was out completely.
Yeah.
And instead of that, I mean, what has become quite evident is that through evolution, probably, quite obviously, through evolution, new realities emerge. Right? There's the idea of emerging, new things emerge, sentience and content, like life, right? Life and sentience emerging, which are not reducible to that, right? They have something to do with that, and they depend on that. Matter might be a necessary condition, but it's not the sufficient condition, and it is not all that it is. It's not just matter going there, and consciousness and knowledge and all that comes here. And so that thing is not just reducible to a bunch of atoms. No. Neither any of this, neither music nor morality nor anything. And the rope was this simple indication of the linearity of time, and also of the idea of emergence. Why? Because it's a bunch of perfectly not short but discrete fibers, right?
Okay.
And it is, what's a rope? It's something that emerges, right? A reality that emerges from the coordinated interchange of these thousands of fibers. So it was so simple to me. So I was playing very much plastic, that idea, I brought the plastic to that group of works having to do with boats and time and the ship of state and all those things. And they almost all have bones. We talk about etc. And I was what's the word? Shredding and fraying the rope as well. And I was doing the same thing with the canvas. And the canvas was shredding there, and I was tying the canvas, and it was one canvas on top of another canvas, and then paint and paper and layering. So there was a sort of a stratification of different layers, more or less like the stratification of time. on the earth. And the reality again was the reality that it's held together by time like that with the rope. But together with that, it was this fascinating coincidence that it's not a coincidence, but congruence perhaps between the fact that the structure, the biological structure that we have and that we have in common with mammals and with fish, etc. It is basically spined with a rib cage, right?
Yeah.
And there was ships. The basic structure is spined with a
they
rib
emulate
cage.
that, don't they?
You see, I was using that bone. And I was making
yes,
that bone.
okay.
And that becomes a ship. That becomes a human being, etc. And then
that's
it's the idea that
Yeah.
I mean, after all, I mean, human beings are pretty much existentially, because I am very much an existential philosopher, existentially, who are we? We are these things that we have no idea really who we are, that we find ourselves as in a boat going somewhere. We don't know anywhere it leads except to death, as Heidegger says, right?
Yeah.
And we already have a wake behind us.
Yes, yeah.
And we have this structure that is boat-like, I mean, or animal that's emerging, we're just going, and we don't know anything more than that. I mean, we're in this absolutely awe-inspiring universe in which we just appear and invent all kinds of mythologies to explain it, but we don't know where we're going, right?
Oh my gosh.
And it's that idea, that existential idea that here we are, I mean, let's be honest, we don't know. I mean, there's something like that, and there's still, I mean, there's the beauty.
Yeah,
there's
the
love,
beauty.
and there are all these things, I mean, they're wonderful.
You said, you know, things are reduced to atoms, and it's like we think only in terms of the physical plane sometimes, because really...
And all that is important, and
yes,
it's true,
yeah,
but it's not reducible to it. I mean, beauty cannot be explained just with atoms. I mean, you can explain all the position, momentum, etc. of all the particles in a Rembrandt painting, but you never get the beauty of it.
No, that's true.
You need to experience it.
It's so true. It's like some people will not even go in that direction. You know, it's harder for them to just see the beauty, and I think this is what's important about what you do and what artists do in general. Is just try to help us.
And to see a reality that's greater than and it's wonderful.
It is wonderful. No, it truly is. Oh my gosh. I guess we can break for another moment. Hi, sweetie.
Come here,
that's
Garma.
okay. She can come in. Okay, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to come in to your space and share.
Me who has to thank you.
Well, it's mutual then, and I mean, it's an honor, because I really think an artist studio is a place of magic, and you've really brought it into a lot of your work as you're now.
It's the subject of very often of the subject of my collection.
I totally love that. And I'm going to just say to the viewers, thank you for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you to those who have subscribed. You help these videos get out there to the general public. So I appreciate it. And thank you again, sir. And we are and we are signing out. Thanks so much.